Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Flame. Explorers of Flame was released on the 28th of August 2008, written and illustrated by Makoto Mizubuchi, the same person who wrote and illustrated Jinji's Rescue Team, published in the CoroCoro comics in Japan. There isn't anything else online I could find with the history behind this manga, since it never got an official English translation. Summary as usual, this time our story begins with the Totodile attempting to register for Wigglytuff's guild that trains Pokemon into becoming full-fledged explorers. Totodile chickens out and runs to the beach where he finds a Chimchar laying in the sand claiming he's human. From there, the rest of the chapter follows Chimchar, who claims his name is Fire. Fire? I thought this was a joke at first, but it seems like there are folks who name their kids Fire, I guess. Has the end of humanity reached so soon? Fire and Totodile go to chase after Zubat and Koffing that ran away after Totodile kinda just gives him his precious treasure. Partner Pokemon having a low IQ? Check. Wouldn't it be a Mystery Dungeon game if they didn't? After a rock here, some confusion there, they recover the relic fragment, Totodile's precious treasure, meeting an explorer known as Dusknoir along the way. By chapter 2, they become full-fledged members of Wigglytuff's Explorers Guild. One time skip later, and there's a thief stealing all the time gears across the Pokemon world. The guild decide to help, leading to Fire and Totodile fighting Grovyle. They defeat Grovyle with the help of Dusknoir, and back to the future he goes to be executed? Well, yeah, plot twist, turns out Dusknoir is evil and is looking to execute Fire, Totodile, and Grovyle. The trio manage to escape. Totodile shares his concerns of whether he and Fire should trust Grovyle. They agree to stay with one another at least until they all reach the past. Grovyle guides them to the legendary Pokemon Celebi, who will create the gate for them to go back. Unfortunately, Dusknoir is a few steps ahead of them as he blocks them from getting to the Gate of Time created by Celebi with his Sableye and Big Daddy Primal Dialga. This was when Dusknoir revealed that Flame was from the future and Grovyle was his partner. Dun dun dun! Anyway, Celebi teleports them to the passage of time. While Primal Dialga does interrupt her teleportation, she's able to get them close enough to where they are able to jump into the gate, the trio being flung to the past. From here, Grovyle sets out to get the rest of the time gears. While Fire and Totodile set their sights on searching for the Hidden Land, they get assistance from a wise Torkoal who redirects them to Brine Cave. Heading into the dungeon's depths, Totodile puts in his relic fragment and Lapras appears to be their guide towards the Hidden Land. After crossing the Hidden Land, before they can put their relic fragment into the Rainbow Star stone ship, Dusknoir interrupts and attacks them. Dusknoir was on the cusp of victory, though Deus Ex Machina appeared in the form of Grovyle, assisting the duo in stopping Dusknoir. Dusknoir again drops a gigantic nuke on Fire, claiming that them restoring the future will make all the future Pokemon disappear, including himself, Grovyle, and Fire. While Grovyle confirms this, Fire is given no time to digest this information as Dusknoir attempts to attack once again. Grovyle intervenes and drags Dusknoir into the portal back to the future. He entrusts the future of everyone in their hands. Charmander and Totodile head for the top of the Temporal Tower, one fight with Dialga later, and they save the world. Hooray! No, damn it, no! Fire had to say goodbye to Totodile, as now he and the rest of the Pokemon disappear from the world. Sometime later, and Totodile is still mourning Fire's death. As a gift for stopping Temporal Tower's fall, aka the corruption of time, Dialga brings back Fire. We'll assume it was all happily ever after. If you're wondering, Dialga also brought back all the Pokemon from the future, which was shown in Special Episode 5 in Explorers of Sky. They don't show that resolution here though, so in this universe, they could be presumed as dead. Oof. You're probably wondering why that summary was so long. Well, that's because that's what the majority of this manga focuses on. Jinji's Rescue Team, despite having to fit a 20-hour plot into 6 manga chapters, had room to start developing some of the characters from the games in its own way. Here? I mean, Explorers of Flame follows Jinji's Rescue Team's story structure. Chapter 1 focuses on some basic introductions to the characters and the most in-depth details about the backgrounds and what mystery dungeons are like. Jump to Chapter 2, and suddenly, we're already nails deep into the plot. The original Time and Darkness had an average playtime of 23 hours, about the same as Red and Blue Rescue Team. Even despite that, there's a much more heavy focus on the plot in Time and Darkness. A lot of your time in the main game is spent experiencing the story. In the previous games, you'd be screwing around a lot waiting for stuff to happen, taking up a large part of the playtime. Mizubuchi this time around didn't focus at all at making unique interpretations of the game's dungeons and such. Heck, you don't even get to see the dungeons this time around besides the first chapter. And you know what? Screw it! I still found the story more enjoyable to read than Jinji's Rescue Team. Maybe this is just my clear bias for Sky showing, but the story here hits those emotional cues much better than the previous manga did. The betrayal of Dustnor, finding out you might soon be killed, and the shocking reveals behind how you became a Pokemon. It still doesn't hit as hard as the games, but it hits more than Jinji's Rescue Team. Not to mention the chemistry between the characters being ever so slightly better, but we'll get to that in a bit. Looking into some of the story changes, Koffing and Zubat never come back again since here the expedition arc was cut for time's sake. Torchkull appears later down the road when Fire and Totodile are looking for the Hidden Land like in the games, rather than in his first appearance being after you've been flushed out of the Waterfall Cave. Some other minor changes being that you don't set out to save Mesprit and you only look to help protect the time game entrusted to Azelf. When Fire and Totodile headed back to Wigglytuff's guild, it was already frozen in time. Huh. Neat. This story change bugs the hell out of me, but not as much as the next one coming. Grovyle initially doesn't come with Fire and Totodile in favor of collecting all the time gears. Okay. Shouldn't they wait for Grovyle then? I mean, without the time gears, you can't fix Temporal Tower, so going ahead without him isn't really that smart, especially considering Lapras is their only form of transport toward the Hidden Land, and you're already occupying them. And I'm sorry, Grovyle could not have showed up in time to save them. Unless he knows teleportation or Lapras is as fast as lightning, then this shouldn't be possible. My Deus Ex Machina alert has now rung high into the sky. The most jarring change that still keeps me up at night is how Wigglytuff says nothing. Literally, not a single line. We only see the back of him. Then, somehow, they make Wigglytuff as small as flippin' Chatot. Makoto Mizubuchi, you done goof here, pal. And due to Wigglytuff's absence, Wigglytuff and Chatot never went through Blind Cave in this version. Torkoal just tells you to say, hey, that's where the Hidden Land is located. My pettiness aside, like with Jinji's Rescue Team, it doesn't do the original game justice. It still did a fine job entertaining me though. Now, at first I thought Fire was going to be parallel to how Jinji was written. I'm glad to say that he's much better than that. Sassy, confident, hard-headed, and lovable. I guess it wouldn't be wrong to say Fire falls into the shonen protagonist trope. Nonetheless, Jinji was the type of person who goes with the flow, and if you rub him the wrong way, he'll tell you. An absolute savage, that boy. This might have evoked change for Mudkip, but it killed the tension for some of Rescue Team's most important plot points, turning moments that should have been serious into comedy instead. Fire evokes change in Totodile in a similar way, but he's encouraging, unlike Jinji. Fire's sassy nature is like hope to the group because when all hope seems lost, he's still ready to fight and crack jokes, not feeling the despair in front of him. Fire tells Totodile to compromise and work with Grovyle to get to the future instead of trusting what he says. This is Fire being considerate by giving Totodile time to accept a truth he knows he has to accept. Can't forget how Fire's first impression was absolute gold. Struck me like a laser, I tell ya. Totodile is similar to Mudkip in the sense that they both become proactive in achieving their goals. Sad to admit, Mudkip was a bit lazy, procrastinating any chance he got. Totodile lets fear consume him and arguably is more gullible than Mudkip. My dude casually hands his precious treasure to some stranger like it's nothing. Okay? That's your fault for being dumb, buddy. I don't know what to tell you. Lucky for him, he's a character in a story. Real life ain't so kind. I know from experience. Totodile is your partner from Explorers of Time, Darkness, and Sky, but gullible. His growth is invisible for the most part since from chapter 1 to 2, there is just a time skip. They have a few missions under their belt and Totodile is feeling more confident, not changing at all really other than him feeling Dustnor's betrayal and the hesitation to trust Grovyle. I swear, I don't like repeating this point, but again, the game had more time to explore how the twists of the story negatively impacted your partner. The hopelessness felt and the strength of heart it took for them to trot along and eventually accept the truth for what it was. Grovar is relatively similar to his game counterpart, only this time, he comes off more smug. Still indifferent to how you and your partner perceive him at the start when you're both captured and sent to the future, but this Grovar will still rub things in your face if he feels like it. Grovar's stoic nature in the games is fine, but it feels underdeveloped, like his relationship with the player before becoming a Pokemon should have been shown. At least, this manga gives us a slight differentiation of Grovar's personality. Dosno and the guild members have no differentiation with how they act. Obviously, the guild members aren't developed because of this little resource we call time. Dosno's reveal of being a fake happened a little too quick and way more obvious here. Man had the red flags all over him. It does ruin the shock of the reveal, but let's not dwell on the time constraints too much. All the Treasure Town Pokemon got Thanos snapped in this universe. Fair enough, Mizubuchi. The Pokemon in Pokemon Square had some relevance to the story at least. In Treasure Town, they only exist to provide resources to the player. How sad. Surprisingly, even though this time around there was a heavy focus on story, I say this manga rivals Gingy's Rescue Team. Now, I wouldn't say surpass since that's my own personal bias leaking through, attempting to keep Explorers of Sky forever on top. But there is an improvement in the quality of characters even if there are less of them developed. The story is adapted better than Gingy's Rescue Team, the emotional moments still being as impactful as ever. However, what brings Gingy's Rescue Team to Explorers of Flame's level is the manga's strength in encapsulating the Mystery Dungeon's world in a new light through its artwork and changes to the story, in order to navigate around Rescue Team's robust story. In Explorers of Flame, many of the changes tend to be either daft or unnecessary. I won't put a link in this time since there's no way to read it in English besides other means. If you're feeling like a masochist with money to spend, it's always available on Amazon for a not so cheap price. In Japanese. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Time and Darkness Special. In Japan, this special first aired on September 9, 2007, as part of Pokemon Sunday, which in summary was a variety show featuring reruns of old Pokemon episodes and specials, containing some live-action elements. 3 days later, the special would be released online. America wouldn't get it until August 17, 2008, being part of a Pokemon pack containing a Palkia and Dialga style DS Lite, carrying case, etc. Its DVD being part of the pack. It wouldn't air on TV in America until September 1st of the same year. Weirdly enough, you could also get it for free in Woolworths stores in the UK if you either bought Explorers of Time, Explorers of Darkness, Diamond, or Pearl. The special was also released on YouTube on the same day as the Team Go-Getter special. The special begins in a cave. We see a Grovar stealing the item which it refers to as Time Gear. We then cut to see a Chimchar trying to get into Wigglytuff's guild as an apprentice. However, when he's discovered by Diglett and some of the other guild members, he runs away to the shore of a beach. Say hello to our protagonist this time around, Piplup. And after some back and forth of him realizing that he's a Pokemon and he has no memories of being human, Chimchar proposes they head to Wigglytuff's guild in hopes Wigglytuff knows something about Piplup becoming a Pokemon. Spoiler alert, he doesn't. Frankly, I think Chimchar used it as an excuse to recruit Piplup, as Chimchar quickly realized that Piplup wasn't one to easily accept things. Nonetheless, they form an exploration team called Pokepals. The next day, they head to a mystery dungeon called Labyrinth Cave to obtain one of Gabai's scales for a Shinx who needs it to heal his ill sister. After obtaining it and defeating Gabai, Piplup decides to continue his journey as an explorer with Chimchar. Once again, at the end of the special, the story alluding to a larger narrative. Go-Getters Out of the Gate had the same story structure as this one. Unlike Go-Getters Out of the Gate though, this one uses the format and structure a little better. As an example, it's more clear what certain items actually do in the story, and even unlike Gingy's Rescue Team, there's no, hey, let's change how moves work for the sake of the plot. Coastal Twigs was actually something made up in the Go-Getter special until they actually became items in Rescue Team DX. I think it's better to only use items that will appear in the games to show off their intended effect rather than making something entirely new for the special. If not, people playing the game will either go looking for them and won't find it, or by changing its effects, they will just misunderstand how to use the items. Some food for thought there. Besides that, the special story is pretty standard. There's a showcase of the main character's ability to see into the future after touching something, but that's not really that important yet. To end things off, it's worth mentioning that the Labyrinth Cave was added to the games and you are able to access the dungeon through Wondermill. Thankfully, for all us lazy people, you can access the dungeon by Spinder's Cafe if you own Explorers of Sky. Ha! We own the superior version of the game. Take that, Explorers of Time and Darkness fans. I'm so superior that I play it through an emulator. Again, moving into characters, there's not much to say here. This special is pretty much a mirror of the Go-Getter special. The main difference in the characters being our protagonist and partner Pokemon, particularly Piplup, who has a strong individual personality. He's actually surprised when becoming a Pokemon. Squirrel kinda just rolls with it, allowing himself to be dragged around by Chikorita and Charmander, but Piplup is assertive if necessary. Even if he isn't into it, he'll do the bare minimum. He's most likely to take things with a grain of salt. Chimchar is the complete opposite to this, being rather naive. He believes that Wigglytuff sleeping is a sign of a great explorer. Sparkles were in his eyes. Even so, that naivete is admirable. Wanting to help Pokemon in need any way he can, the partner Pokemon in the games had very little confidence. But we don't need to worry about Chimchar. He's got that. You can decide whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Another day, another special. Aside from a few changes in how items were explained, improved story structure and such, this is an imitation of how Team Go-Getters out of the gate did things. And it works. Like always, the link for this special is in the description of this video if you want to check it out. But yeah, pretty cool, I'd say. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers Beyond Time and Darkness. Airing 2 years after the original special on the 12th of April 2009 in Japan, and October 9th the same year in America, this special was given to those on DVD from GameStop who pre-ordered Explorers of Sky. Like Go-Getters Out of the Gate and its original special, this one was posted on the official Pokemon YouTube channel on the same day. This special is a continuation of the previous Explorers of Time and Darkness one. It opened with a montage of Chimchar, Grovyle, and Piplup going on various different adventures together, the montage ending with them mounting on Lapras to head to the Hidden Land. And though Temporal Tower lies beyond the Hidden Land, unfortunately, Dusknoir and a group of Sableye appear to halt their progression indefinitely by stealing Chimchar's relic fragment. After they fight, Dusknoir springs onto Piplup that everyone from the future will disappear after time is properly restored. Grovyle restrains Dusknoir when he attempts to once again steal the relic fragment. He takes him to the future, leaving the task for saving the world up to Chimchar and Piplup. The two mountain on the rainbow path that takes them to Temporal Tower, the special ending with a silhouette of Dialga in the distance. I'm not sure how to feel about this one. On one hand, for those who have already played Explorers of Time and Darkness, it's a good reminder to them to pick up the definitive edition of those games, showing them, frankly, one of the highlights of the story. On the other hand, this approach ruins the reveals of major plot twists in the game, and can take away from the game's emotional weight. Ironically, the special could deter people from wanting to play the games because if they already know some major game-changing plot twist, then what's the point? For what it's worth, at least, they didn't spoil the game's ending. But still, come on. A different approach they could have taken was doing what they did for the last two specials. Have an individual story, somewhat unrelated to the game's plot, to encourage people to want to play the game. It might be an unintentional blessing that they left out some ambiguous details like who the hell Dusknoir is, what the future looks like, etc. They also never specified this was the Grovyle who was stealing the time gears, so maybe they're different people? What do you think? Forget it, unless you're brain dead, then it ain't fooling anyone. Nonetheless, it's always important to maintain that suspension of disbelief. I swear it's important, people. Anyway, a good plotline they could have used was the Shaman plotline. I mean, they are the Pokemon at the front of Explorers of Sky's box set. And I love this Sky Garden, might I add. I'll keep this one brief since these are the same characters from the previous special. Grovyle, Dusknoir, and Sableye all act in line with how they were characterized in the games. Chimchar is the same as well. I want to say he's more confident now, but he seems about the same honestly. Him running away from the guild in the first special could be seen as cowardly, yet he was all good fighting Gabite. Meanwhile in the games, your partner is sniveling and crying about a Zubat and coughing stealing their special treasure. Piplup has changed though. Before in the first special, he clearly wants no business with the guild or Chimchar. He only agrees to form a team in hopes he can eventually find the truth behind his real identity. He also didn't come off as a self-sacrificial type like he does here. Now, he's willing to give up his own life for the sake of fixing the future. His convictions only dampen when he realizes that his death will have a negative impact on Chimchar. Usually I would be like, okay dude, this is great development, fantastic, or something like that. But we as an audience don't see any of this. We're just told to believe, hey, he changes, I swear, take my word for it. It's the same as taking a character out of the story for a month and then they used to be bratty and annoying, then just comes back humble, kind and caring. You just be like, what? I'd like to be kind and say, they didn't have enough time to develop things, but my response to that would be, there didn't need to be enough time to develop things. You've made a special to advertise the games, right? Then just make a self-contained story giving viewers a taste for what the story will be when they play it. You did the same the first 2 times, how is this time any different? Look how brief I kept things. I didn't enjoy this one. My issues with spoiling the game's story aside, this special feels like an inferior version of the game in every way. The dialogue reflects poorly on the seriousness of the circumstances. Like, look here.
Our lives will be lost, Piplup, but the result is the future will be saved for everyone. Piplup, you and I both came here fully prepared for that sacrifice.
I get it. So that's how it was all along. We were willing to stake our lives on this.
Of course, I realize losing your memory might make this difficult for you to hear.
All right, Grovile. If nobody but us can prevent the destruction of time, we've got to. We have to take out Tiaga for sure. Even if it means the end of us, we have to make sure time doesn't stop.
He told you you are going to die. This reaction is unnatural. The music doesn't suit, and the pacing for that same Piplup scene doesn't give the viewer or even Piplup enough time to process that. Him, Grovile, and Dusknoir, all the Pokemon from the future, will die, leaving Chimchar behind. Aside from that, despite how negative I've been, this isn't the worst thing you'll watch. In fact, I implore you watch it yourself. It's still a nice piece of history to look back on and appreciate. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorer's Strategy Guide. Believe it or not, but there was a short comic that came with the Explorers of Time and Darkness Strategy Guide that creates a story revolving around Explorers of Time's box art. It was written and illustrated by Ken Sugimori, who illustrated art for the Pokemon movies, TCG cards, and merchandising. In the comic, Chimchar and Turtwig are on their first rescue mission inside a forest. When they are about to open a treasure box they'd found, Weavile's team comes in and beats them up. They only stop and decide to let Chimchar and Turtwig have the treasure box's spoils when Weavile senses something is amiss. They promptly head out of the forest, allowing Chimchar and Turtwig to successfully complete their first mission. The characters in this comic are flat and rushed patient as usual. In terms of an advertisement for the games, it fails in the regard of getting you to buy it. In spite of that, this comic came with the strategy guide, which you buy when you already own the game. In that sense, it's great as a neat little bonus. It's for sure not a contender for Pokemon Mystery Dungeon's best ad. All the same, it quickly gets you hyped to play the games. So, if you really want to own this one, make sure you have a copy of the game first. This strategy guide can be found for a reasonable price, either from eBay or Amazon. Just to make sure everyone buys the correct one, it's the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Time and Darkness Primer official game guide. Since looking online, there's a strategy guide for Sky and another Explorers of Time and Darkness one.